Hello and welcome to Budget Model Railways Tutorial Tuesdays. Sorry there wasn't one last week. It's a bit busy my end with all sorts of things. And I haven't actually got a lot of model railways done. One reason for which will become clear a bit later in the video. So I've got quite a bit to talk about, quite a few big changes. So please stay with us. So those of you that know, this is the Japanese layout. So this is the one I was trying to sell, but couldn't sell. I guess because it's Japanese. It's not that much interest in them. And it had to be relatively expensive because there's a lot of buildings and so on here. However, it's about to have a new lease of life. My initial idea was to take the middle track there and continue it out through the back scene. I can put a bridge or something there to hide it. More of that in a minute. And that one is already easily hidden by the trees. So the first thought was if I put an end piece here and a bit round the back, another great big board and an end piece there, I could have a continuous run. And a continuous run for an exhibition would be a little bit easier. There's always something for somebody to watch. But my reservation was that all the time it's round the back, there's more off-scene than on-scene, so there wouldn't be a lot of trains. And so then one of my subscribers made a comment. Sorry, I'm not very good at recording these things, so I'm not sure who it was. Said, well, why don't you do an elevated line? And that got me thinking, they're very common in Japan. I Googled them and I could have a line running sort of over the paddy fields, somehow over the town and out through here. Relatively easy, punch a hole in the end back scenes. And I was talking to Doug, and Doug said, well, why ponce around really? Why not make it a double track? And that then really got me thinking, because double tracks, from what I can see from a Google search, are really common. And that would make the layout look really quite striking, because I can scratch build using plywood and cardboard, the kind of raised viaduct. It can have some big pillars into the paddy fields. It'll be quite challenging taking it through the town, but I could put a steel truss between the buildings to support it. It could then run, if I scratch build it taller than this building, off through here and out through here somewhere. Now, if it goes out through here, it would hide the exit of that. I don't know what happened there. Sorry, I touched something. Let's zoom back out again. Sorry if it's a little bit shaky, but because I want to flit around with things I'm going to talk about, I'm not using a tripod today. So that really got me inspired, and I think that would make a really interesting exhibition layout. And I need another exhibition layout because I've just been invited ourselves would be more appropriate, to yet another exhibition. Which again I'll talk about in a minute. Now, this would be quite an engineering feat, because it will mean a baseboard having to be built that way and around the back, and it will need to be double level. So in some ways, the challenges of building the raised track on here pale into insignificance of building a double track loop and fiddle yard. And of course, I've just got rid of all my stock of bits of wood that might come in handy one day. And now I've got rid of them. Of course, I need them. Cardinal sin, that. But anyway, I've got some floating shelves and some more timber. It's going to be a pretty big job. But I think that would look really something. So that's probably what I'm going to do now for my exhibition layout for next year. So I've already been invited to the Bluebell and East Grinstead, and I've got to see if I can fit that around the diary and the domestic diary. At the weekend, thanks to Leo at Something, I was actually decorating. My wife's away for a few days, so I was getting some decorating done. And Leo put on WhatsApp the lavender line at Uckfield was open. And I've been trying to get there for about 2 years. It's not open a lot, and I always seem to miss it. And not only was it open, it had Amrec. The model railway guys from Ashford were exhibiting a few layouts. So I literally dropped my paintbrush, jumped on the motorbike, and within 45 minutes I was at Ifield. And it's a really good little line if you've never been. It's not very long. Could have been long, I'm led to believe, longer over the years, but opportunities were missed potentially. But anyway, it's a nice little line. It had the most fabulous Belgian vertical boiler steam tram loco thing. Google it. They really need to promote that because it's a real one-off. So it was fabulous to see that running up and down. And they had some layouts in a coach. I've switched to a tripod while I'm talking, so otherwise it's a bit shaky. And I say the guys from the Ashford International Model Railway for Education Centre, AIMREC as I know them, were there. And I know Fred and John, who does the Japanese layouts. And we got talking to them and the organisers at Lavender. And we've suggested that a few of us might go next year from Sompting and take some layouts. So potentially I could be doing that one as well. But it's really good. If you Google it before you drive down there, because it's not always open a lot. Fabulous little tea room in the old waiting room. Must be one of the most picturesque tea rooms on a preserved railway. And I can thoroughly recommend the cake and tea. Yeah, really, really good little site. So that's that layout. That's potentially going to be a big change. Really big engineering project, that one. So I'm going to need a bit of space to do that. But I'm really looking forward, I like something different. One of the reasons I've been struggling with layouts in general, and exhibition layouts in particular, is because I don't want to do the same old formulaic layouts. And so this would be anything but that, two level ovals as well. So that's, that's a thought. Talking about visiting people, I was out for a little ride the other day on my bike, and I dropped into Compass Models at Rotherfield in Sussex. Little shop, masses of new stock, masses of second-hand stock, really nice people in there. I picked up a nice little second-hand industrial unit goods shed for my N-gauge layout for a couple of quid. Really quite impressed with it. Lot of stock in what is a small shop. So again, I think they keep fairly regular hours, but if you're going a distance, it's worth checking ahead. But definitely worth a trip. And it's not very far from Classic Rail at Ticehurst. You could easily do both in a day. Always worth checking with Classic Rail that he's going to be open, because Richard's sometimes out buying stock. But certainly Compass Models at Rotherfield, interesting little business. Well worth a look if you're in the area. So the other big change, last week I showed off this layout and said how pleased I was with the track plan. The interesting thing was that running trains, I realised I wasn't that pleased with the track plan. It just didn't get me fired up. It's okay, and it would have worked all right, but I couldn't get a lot of enthusiasm for it. It really needs to be double track. I've got an aversion to double track. But actually, if you want to watch trains run, you need double track. So as I'm going to need a lot of Kato track for that project, it all kind of came together and this has been lifted. So I'm going to lift the raised area as well. All I know for certain at the moment, I've had a tidy up in here. It's not going to stay this empty. I boxed everything up, threw a load of stuff away. It's in a summer house and it will come back in here, but it will come back a bit more neat and tidy and less cluttered, and it'll give me more storage room. So one of the things I'm thinking about is what we did with Double O, which is to run what will now be a double track. We did it with single track all the way around here. So this part has always been this shelf was a bit of a kind of workbench, sort of, maybe. But it does give me the option of making this scenic. So what I would have is an L-shaped scenic layout. Pretty big one in N. Now it does mean I'm back to the old days of the different levels, having to, bodge and raise an area. But that's not a problem. I can get a big shelf or something and do that. Double track's not very wide. It could run over the back there, and I would still then have my bench here, my desk, my dad's old desk, and I'd be able to watch trains run past me while I'm working on the desk. This could stay as my workbench, It's just that it would have trains running around the back because I can find storage from my American layout. It does mean I'd have to duck again coming through the door, but I am using Kato track, so it would be possible to have a simple clip-in piece of track there so that I could still use the door. So I'm quite keen at the moment to build a raised double deck, so it would be this level, so that I could then go back to doing a loop or a double loop potentially on the bottom. But I need to stop a bit more. It's partly, as it turns out, it's partly my ADHD. I get sudden enthusiasm for projects and I do it. And that's how I did the track plan for this. Been waiting to do it for a long while. Suddenly got an idea, banged it down. But in fact, it needs a little bit more thought. It needs a little bit more consideration, especially as I can now scenic that part. And I'm also a little bit torn. So what I really like is this kind of look. And the oval that I've built, the minimalist oval with the sidings. I kind of like the less is more look. And the problem with the layout that I was building is it was going to be the usual crammed layout. It's going to be a big industrial area, big station, big raised area with lots of buildings and so on. And I'm not sure that's what I want. I still like the idea of having a complete branch line that goes from somewhere to somewhere. And this L shape would enable me to do that if I continued it into here. I really like the Kato pocket line stuff, the trams, the steeple cabs, the steam trains, the freelance look. So although I've got lots of big Japanese locos, well, they could run on the exhibition layout. I could always set it up on a big table in the cabin or something if I wanted to run it. I've obviously got my UK one there if I want to shunt my few UK bits. And I like my American one. I am going to get on with that. That's not finished. That's not forgotten about and going to be abandoned. I've got quite a bit now of US locos and US rolling stock, all bought really cheaply. And so that still fires me up and I'd like to get on with that. So that can live underneath. That can live underneath there. That's not a problem. And it can be operated on the bench. But it's trying to get my head round what I'm going to do with this. It's a good potential. And I don't want to get it. I won't say the last one was wrong. If I built it, I'd have really enjoyed it. But it wasn't really ultimately what I want. I've got a flying boat. I really always wanted to do a little branch line down to a flying boat, a harbour, rather than the classic harbour, going down to a flying boat station where the passengers are coming off. And the more minimalist gives you less is more. It gives you more scenery. You know, otherwise you're in the same problem as Double O. By the time you built a big station, you've filled a quarter of this board. I also don't need to incorporate shunting in this. I've got shunting layouts. So I had a big shunting area through the middle here, and I'm not sure I need that. I would like the multi-road terminus station for my EMUs, but that could potentially be over here. But somehow I'd still like to incorporate the branch line idea. And if I run a big double line raised around the back that goes around the whole shed, that gives me somewhere to run my bigger trains, my big diesels and my big electric Japanese locos, my big EMUs. So they could run through the scenery. And then at the bottom here, I could have an oval, but I could go back to the single oval. I could have a fiddle yard over here, like the old Double O one, potentially, not sure. So that's, I want to pause. It's unusual for me. I'm a doer. I charge at things. It's how I've always done things. It's part of what success I had for others to say in work and cadets and things. But I charge at things. And as I say, I now know that that's partly my adult ADHD. But it's what I like doing. I like the burst of enthusiasm. But I need to discipline myself. I need to pause. I need to think this through. And what I'm actually doing is working through, I've got probably hundreds of old Continental modelers and 10 years worth. And I find them very inspirational. So I'm going through those at the moment, looking for ideas. I don't want to be one of these people that plans for 10 years. You know my view of those, and never builds anything. So there's a fine line there, but I need to pause long enough just to get it right. I've got the Japanese layout to build. So it's not like I'm not going to be building anything. I'd like to put a big burst of enthusiasm into the Japanese layout, and I can use this as the workbench to build it on. That's really got me going because it's the engineering side of it. It's building the double height supporting structures around the edge for it. That interests me. I've got my American layout to build. So it's not that I'm not going to be building anything. So I won't be one of these people that's planning and not building. I just won't necessarily be building the big layout. The L idea I really like, from there to here, and that obviously gives me the opportunity for my end-to-end branch line. You know, I can put a little terminus down this end, and it can run, you know, it could run all the way over the back there. It doesn't need, you know, I might leave that hill for the time being. This is why I like to talk to you guys. I know you can't talk back, although I love the comments, but it gets me, it's almost brainstorming. Perhaps I leave that. Perhaps I run the double line on the back and I leave that for the moment, because perhaps the branch line goes under that tunnel or through that cutting, and it goes off there and it comes into here. Now that's a bit awkward going to there because I can't really reach that to shunt or anything, but it could go into here. So that would give me the branch line that goes from somewhere to somewhere. And perhaps we could then run the loop round there. It's tight, but it would work for the shorter locos. In fact, I'll measure that in a minute. Let's do that now. Bear with me, viewers. How deep is this? Yeah, see, it's 22 inches, so I'd get first radius in there. I get a first radius loop in there. So that's an interesting idea. We could first radius and then kink it back round, giving us room there for the branch line to go somewhere. Yeah. I think we could do something with that. And then it goes round the back. So, head's buzzing, lots of ideas. I'm not going to plan it forever and not build it. But I am just going to pause for a minute and decide what I want. I've got this great opportunity. I'm very fortunate. I've got this big shed. I've insulated it. We'll see how it goes in the winter, but so far so good. It coped very well in the summer. It's in the shade. It's insulated. It didn't get too hot. It might fall down eventually, the outside, but the inside's quite strong. So I am quite fortunate. I've got this shed, albeit it's 25 years old. It's falling down. It's been rigged, but that's in the budget. That's in the budget ethos. I still then got my workbench because I like working at a higher level. Yeah, I'm, you know, oh, hang on a second. I'd set an alarm to remind me to put the recycling bin out. It's bin day tomorrow. So that's what that, I don't know if that came up on the screen. That was my alarm to put the bins out. But I've already done it, so I didn't need the alarm. I can still store layouts underneath here. That's still a possibility, and obviously storing this layout would be a challenge, but that part fits underneath, so the other parts will, if you like, clip on or screw on, so they can store underneath as well. And I've still got my hankering to do my O gauge, my Lima O gauge. If the weather's okay at the weekend, I might go down to Winchester. There's the US and European O gauge show. It's a bit of a ride. It's about 2.5 hours each way. But if it's a nice day, it's a nice ride. But forecast at the moment's not great. I'm not a fair weather biker. A couple of years ago with cadets, I did an awful lot of very wet rides out of necessity. But I did years of commuting in rain and snow all the way through the winter. So I think I earned my spurs of bad weather riding, 30 or 40 years ago, before we had heated grips and that sort of thing. I can remember getting to the end of the road and my fingers were frozen and I still had 30 miles to go. So I try not to ride in the cold and the wet now unless I have to. The exception is to get down to something. I always make an effort to go there. My bike, as it happened, came with heated handlebar grips. They are the much nuts. I don't know how I coped without them. Makes a big difference in the winter. Yeah, my Royal Enfield's still a lovely bit of kit and has enabled me to enjoy my model railways because it gets me out to places. So there we go, lots of changes. So since the last video, I've ripped all the track I was raving about, and we've got some plans. I am excited about the exhibition layout, the Japanese layout. I've got some really great locos and rolling stock. Doug's right, by putting a double track on, you see, there'd always be something running. The chances are you'd always have something on the top. It would then be a lot to talk about in an exhibition. Japanese, which always gets people interest. Big double track height viaduct going over the paddy fields in the town, while a diesel quietly meanders through the bottom pulling a big freight. So yeah, I'm excited about that. From going to selling it, now I wouldn't sell it, at all. It's given me the opportunity now to do something different as an exhibition layout. Anyway, I'm probably repeating myself now, but definitely I think that's the kind of look. That's a micro layout, but you imagine that minimalist look on a layout that big. Interesting, isn't it? Smaller buildings. Yeah, possibly. Thank you as always for listening and watching. Me rambling on, or what did I say? Whiffling, I think I came up with the other day. I think that was the word I came up with. Waffling and whiffling. Love to know what people's views are. Suggestions for the big layout, gratefully received. But I do definitely want to try and keep it a bit simpler. I know I could do all sorts of things with it. I know I could I'm going to have 2 levels. I know I could have 3 levels. I know I could have loads of track. But I'm trying to get away from the 00 thing, where 00 layouts are always full of track by necessity. The whole advantage of N-Gauge is you can see trains in the landscape. And I think that's what I need to try and go for. I came down here the other evening. I find shunting very therapeutic. I wasn't in my best place, and I came down here and I just put my pocket line and a few wagons, and I get my card indexes out and I sit and I shunt on that layout for half an hour, and it does clear the head. And it, especially the simple layout, somehow, this is great, but there's a lot going on that, and it's fun. Don't get me wrong, it is a real fun layout, that, but somehow the simplicity of this, when you're doing it for, if you like, therapy, it just works for me. That's always going to be one of my favourite layouts. A little wiring point, and just a simple fiddle yard off the back of it. A couple of buildings. And I know people are still building the Shelf Challenge. Apologies for not updating the page very often. Doug has the ability to do that. I don't. And Doug is phenomenally busy with work at the moment. He's in his university placement, so he's studying and working. So apologies if I know people occasionally are chasing me. Why isn't their thing up on the site? Please be patient with us. Doug does it as often as he can, but it's quite involved, actually, the way the site is set up. It's an older website. It's not that easy, actually, to do what we need to do. He needs a bit of time, and he doesn't always have that much time. So thank you for your patience, but they will all eventually get uploaded. There we go. All the best to everybody. I hope you're all keeping well and enjoying your model railways. And I'll speak again soon.